Hi, this is Joe with Synergy Athletics. Today I'm joined by Carly, our marketing manager, and we're shooting a new episode of the Synergy Accidentally Fit podcast, where we give you habits and tips where you can start layering them into your life, and over time you'll start seeing the results that you want when you take these little tactics and start implementing them. And today is all on goal setting. It's going to be the first episode on it. We're going to keep it to about 10 minutes because we want to teach one topic on it and then focus on the next one. And today's topic is going to be on the self-image of goal setting. I think this is an important one to talk about first, and it's your perception of what you want to accomplish before we talk about the tactics. Because we've talked X's and O's for almost 12 years at Synergy with a lot of our adult members, and we can teach them what to do, and we can even talk about some of the reasons why they might want to do it. But unless they have a shift in their brain that they view themselves as someone who can accomplish goals, then that usually leads to not accomplishing exactly what they want. And I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a cool study on lottery winners. Carly, have you ever won the lottery?
I have not.
Okay. Well, if you had won the lottery, and they did a study of people who won over $1 million, and 70% of them go bankrupt. So 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt. And they come up with the conclusion, and I agree with it, that you can have $1 million, but unless you learn the skills to manage $1 million and the mindset to be a millionaire, you'll go exactly back to the way you were before. The same is true with fitness. If you gave someone a magic pill and they had everything they want, and we never address the underlying habits or self-image, they'd likely go back to the exact life they had before, because they'd be doing the same things in a very short period of time. And so we want to talk about your own perception and what kind of habits can you layer in so you become a quote unquote healthy person. And there was a cool study on this by a lady named Langer. And I've talked about this one before on the podcast, where they went down to, I believe it was in North Carolina, where they did a study on hotel maids. And hotel maids, 70% of them said they viewed themselves as not getting their exercise requirements, even though it was a pretty physically demanding job. So she took the hotel maids and she broke them into two groups. One group of hotel maids, she just said, "Hey, you don't get the exercise requirements. This is just the way your life is." The other group, she said, "You are one of the fittest professions, and you do get the exercise requirements." And they monitored them for a few months, and they came back and they checked to see if they increased their exercise. They didn't change hardly anything in their daily life. They didn't change their eating habits. They didn't change their work. They were still doing the same work. They didn't join an exercise routine. But the ones who viewed themselves as having the fittest profession lost on average 4 to 5 pounds over that same time, with no other changes other than a self-image change. So I like to talk tactics is comfortable for me, and I don't like to talk about the what some people would call the foo-foo mindset stuff, but it does play a massive role in your perception of yourself. Plays a massive role in your ability to accomplish goals. Would you agree, Carly?
Yeah, I would. I like the maid example. I've never heard that before. Um, it got me thinking around, like, I know you and Mel are doing 75 hard right now. And is there something that you've learned through that process around kind of goal setting for yourself that you feel like listeners could take away?
That's a good question, Carly. And what we're going to do over the course of the podcast, this one, we're going to talk about kind of the self-image, and then we'll talk the tactics. So I'm glad you're leading that in, that there are tactics from it, but there are some self-image things as well. And it's going to vary person by person, because Mel, my wife, and I are very different. I come from an athletic background where I'm used to getting tough feedback all the time because I would always screw things up. There was one play at Colgate, 76 and 78. On every time they called those plays, I would go the wrong way. 78, I always blocked down. 76, I always block out, and it had to be the opposite. So I got corrected constantly on it. And the thankfully, I think it helped me develop a self-image. My self-image isn't attached to a mistake in the moment. It's attached to the big picture, and are we moving towards something? Now, Mel comes from a background of not playing sports as much. So I think I attribute that a lot to the ability to take that mistake in the moment and turn it into something positive. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that. And I know you're a coach and you played sports. Did you develop that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think like now being out of sports, like looking back, obviously, like from a coach perspective, I think the way I am in like my professional life, I can definitely connect it back to the way we were like led through sports, and like having that tougher mindset and being ready to take criticism and not like taking it personally, but more so like to learn from it and grow.
And so there are a lot of members who haven't had that experience. We worked with thousands of adults, and I'd say the majority of them probably didn't play a major sport when they were younger, or any sport, and that's not a knock on anything. It's just that I think that's where a lot of that mindset comes from, where it's, hey, I made a mistake. I can bounce back because this is just part of the corrective process. It's understood as part of the process. And so, how do we help the members who don't have a background in putting themselves out there to accomplish a goal, and how do they improve their self image? And I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm going to give two ways, and maybe you think of one as well, Carly. But the first is called the Bright Spots Principle from it's from a book called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, and it is where you take 5 minutes in a quiet room and you write down things that you have done towards that goal. So maybe your goal is to lose some weight. So what have you done that has been a bright spot? Maybe it's walk 10 minutes daily after eating. Maybe you were able to add a vegetable to each meal. Maybe you bought some exercise clothes and attended a few sessions, so you put yourself out there. You expanded your comfort zone. So you get this list of bright spots together to highlight things that have already been accomplished. And I think that's the most critical piece to it, because most people think, oh, I haven't accomplished anything. I haven't lost weight. I haven't done this. And they get in their own head and they're unwilling to expand their comfort zone, which does become harder as you get a little bit older. And once you start running that down, you say, all right, well, I've already taken healthy steps. I'm already on this journey. I've already gone from 0 to 1. Now that friction doesn't exist as much. So now what can I do to keep progressing? So if you don't have that background, which is completely cool, go ahead and start with the bright spots principle. So the second thing I would mention on it, for that self-image piece, is to get a plan. And we'll talk about different options and plans as we go forward on how you could start the process of exercise. But you get frustrated really quick if you don't know anything about where you're going or where you're doing. If you got in a car, started driving, say, hey, I need to go somewhere, you'd be pretty frustrated after an hour of just driving around in circles.
Right.
So developing a plan would be a key component to it. Do you have any advice for him, Carly?
I'm just kind of taking that in. Sorry, we just had a member come do her in-body, so I got slightly distracted.
Yeah, so the in-body is a cool example of where you can set up stakes in the road, which is something else people can do, which are, you want to track progress, whether it's the in-body, which we use to measure whether people are gaining muscle or burning body fat, or what's the composition actually look like versus just stepping on a scale. Because I'm drinking my big red Pizza Hut cup size thing of water. I could drink this, step on a scale, I'm 2 pounds heavier. Does that make me 2 pounds more unhealthy? No. So we use the in-body. So the purpose of it is to set up kind of a stake in the road as a landmark of something you've accomplished. And this is, I believe, from the book Memory. Is that Moment? Power of Moments. That's what it is. Power of Moments. Where whatever you're doing in your life, you want to stop and look around so you feel like you're making progress over time. So with weight loss, it could be, did I go out and walk for 10 minutes 3 times, and you write that down and you set a stake at the end of the month. Yes, I did it. This was awesome. Give yourself a gold star. That would be an example of a small landmark that you could put down. You could use a InBody or I guess a scale, even though I'm not a huge fan of them. It's whatever you have access to. So I would do more accomplishment based ones, like did I have a vegetable with my breakfast for a month, or whatever your goal is. And then once you accomplish it, you have to mark it down and say, hey, this is what I did. This is awesome. Add it to your bright spots and have those landmarks along the way.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of part of like my daily planning. Like the night before, I'll plan what the next day looks like, and I think that that's helpful, like for the professional, like for work, but also for when it comes to exercise. Like, what are the tiny things that I can accomplish that will get me toward like my larger goal? And I think that's something we can focus on with members more so, because sometimes that large goal seems like unattainable, but if we can just break it down into small bits day to day, it happens a lot faster.
Yeah, the analogy from Story Brand is this. Can you imagine coming up to a river and seeing it rushing, saying, hey, you got to get to the other side? Most people wouldn't take the first step in because they're going to get washed away immediately. It's just too much to physically do or mentally do to get all the way across. Now, our goal is to put a bunch of rocks in that river and say, all right, there's that first step that's 6 inches away from the shore. Can you take that first step? Can you take the next step on the next rock? Can you take the next step? And then guide them across as they have these accomplishments, just like the landmarks I'm talking about, along the way to make it more practical. And we'll talk about the strategy side of it after we're done talking about a future episode, after we're done talking about the self-image. But self-image is certainly part of the strategy. You need to know where your headspace is at if you want to accomplish anything, whether it's fitness or work, or whether it's a family goal or whatever you have. So the question comes up to kind of land the airplane on the episode is, do you have to fix your self-image to start exercising, or do you start exercising to help fix your self-image? The old chicken or egg argument. And there's been some studies on it, mostly with adolescents. For some reason, we're able to talk about BMI and self-image with adolescents. It becomes a little bit of a hotter topic as people become adults, and you have to toe the line. You don't want to do any body shame. You have to come from a good place to help people with this. And so what they did with this adolescent study is by Fernandez Bustos out in Spain, where they had a big group of adolescents, and they measured their BMI and a lot of other metrics that aren't just kind of the internal self-image ones that I'm talking about. And they had them do an exercise routine for 6 to 8 weeks, and they remeasured them. And one of the biggest indicators of improved view of their body as an adolescent from the study was getting a little bit more fit and starting to lower their BMI, whether it was, and it didn't really matter what the BMI was. If it went from 30 to 29, they felt great about it. If it went from 40 to 39, they felt great about it. If it went from 25 to 20, they felt great about it. It was any improvement along the way. It's just like that rock analogy. You feel a lot better once you're out in that first one. You're like, all right, this is doable. And you go on the next one. And now you switch your self-image and this is a very important point. You switch your self-image from someone who does not exercise and is not fit. When you look in the mirror, you say, I'm not someone who does this, to someone who starts a routine. You say, people like me do exercise routines like this. And regardless of the body composition at that time, that shift of saying, I am someone who exercises leads to much higher results towards your goal. You have to come up with, what does winning look like to you? And once you start winning, whether it's showing up twice a week for the first time in your life to an exercise routine for 2 months, that could be a big win. You have to now you have you can't BS yourself. Say, hey, I'm a fit person and not do anything. You build up these wins. You shift your mindset and say, people like me do things like this. And there's a lot of studies on it. And my mind is slipping a little bit on the ones that, as people shift their mindset and say, hey, I am someone who is fit or is on the journey of being fit, or I am someone who accomplishes goals, they're going to be much more likely to continue to accomplish them. So the chicken or the egg argument, do you shift your mindset and start? Do you start and then shift your mindset? Honestly, it's whatever gets you moving, whatever moves you towards your goals, but starting and then identifying that wins along the way is a great way to do it. What are your last thoughts, Carly?
Awesome. Yeah, I love the point about positive self-talk. I was talking with one of our members last week about how that's really huge for him, and he feels like this past week, at least, he was in the gym, mainly for that self-image and the mental side of things more so. So with the chicken or the egg, I feel like it's different for everyone. And you just kind of have to start and try and find out kind of what makes you tick. So, yeah,
And
good stuff.
to sign off, I'm going to squish one excuse that I hate to hear, and that is I need to get in shape to start working out. And I hear that one a lot, and it's super counterintuitive, and it has more to do with self-image than with a fitness level. Like, you don't want to go out of your comfort zone. I get that excuse, but understand, like, that's not a really valid reason. And you say it to someone who has been on the journey or is on the journey or wants to start it themselves, it can be demotivational, and it lets them off the hook. And so self-image and all that has to start with the truth. You have to say, all right, well, here are the reasons why I am not feeling great. Here are some things that I could do. Let me choose one and start doing it, because just saying, hey, I am out of shape, so I can't get in shape, is a very fixed mindset, where Carol Dweck would call it. Say, I am someone who is out of shape. That's what we were just talking about. I am not someone who takes steps towards accomplishing my fitness goals. So you have to shake that excuse. You have to shift your self-image, because no one thinks it besides you. And once you get out of your own headspace and can go and lean on some other people for help, and then start working, and then work on yourself with your bright spots, setting your landmarks, taking small steps and accomplishing your goals, you can get a hell of a lot further than if you sat there and made that excuse. All right, let's end this episode. I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to be on next episode, and we'll start getting into some more tactical stuff, but I'm not going to talk tactics until you listen to this and understand your role in this starts right between your ears with your mindset.
Awesome.